Okay, last question. So here is a 19-year-old, and they're in whatever Fort St. George, or they're in, Saskatoon, and they said, I want to build a theater and I want to run a theater. I really like. I have a passion. What would you say to them? What advice would you give to them? They're just coming out of post-secondary and they say, I want to build a theater and I want to run a theater, a successful theater.
Well, first of all, it depends where this person is, how you're going to run a theater, and what kind of theater you want to run. It's fairly easy to start a company without a building. I think the interest in people finding buildings is not nearly as the same as it was when I started, because once you have a building, you're saddled with a building. You've got the heat, you got the light, you got the blah blah blah, right? Starting a company is fairly straightforward. If you have others that are interested in what you want to do, you need to have people with you. You can't do it alone. Theater is collaborative, so you need to make sure that you can gather people to be with you to start whatever this company is you want. So you could start with 4 people, like the Electric Company Theater, with 4 people, graduates from Studio 58, got together and started a company. And they're still going 20, 25 years later. So, and you need to have a point of view. You need to have a particular passion. So what kind of theater do I want to do? Do I want to do, I don't know, Shakespeare or whatever? Well, then go and find a company like Bard on the Beach. Do I want to do classics? Do I want to do new work? Probably do new work. Do I want to do devised work? So you need to be clear. If you're not into, like, I started with a building. I got involved with the building, and I'm going to put on plays and I'm going to direct these plays. But I had the building, I had the place to do it, right? All I had to do was pay the bills and make sure that I got through the year. So if you're not saddled with a building, so you've got a company, then it really is key that you understand what it is you're trying to say on stage. Then book a theater and do your play. And once you've done one play and an audience arrives, and you need to find people who are going to help you. Usually the theater that you rent will be able to assist you in advertising and all those other mundane things that I had to think about. And I was very, very lucky, again, early on, to have a publicist, a woman publicist, Marlene Dixon, who was publicist for Karen Magnuson, the skater. And she was connected to all the media in the community. And she was a former actress. And she helped me understand that you need to publicize. You need to tell people you're doing a show. You can't just do the show. You need to make sure people know you're doing the show. And she was a marvel at getting free publicity. And so people, and then of course, Jacques Brel happened, but even prior to that.
Right.
So once you have your little group, and once you have the theater, once you do one show, then you can decide, am I going to keep going? Because it's not easy. And even though when I started there was very little funding, today it's the same thing. If you start, there's very little funding. Because the funding is so spread out to all the baby boomers that got involved in running their theaters, which is, I think, a sad commentary that maybe more theaters should close, like the Playhouse did, and let that funding go to those that are passionate about what they want to do. But it's not going to be based on funding anyways. You need to have an audience, and you need to, and if you end up with a space, if some development comes along or admires you and says, I'm going to create this space in a condo building as some kind of, civic function or whatever, which happens, then you can, and you need luck. You need to be lucky. You need to be lucky that you arrive at what you want to do at the right time, that there's somebody interested in what you've actually done.
How do you recognize that you don't have luck?
Well, failure tends to smack you in the face. You will recognize it. You will know if your instincts are connected to the ground. You need to be connected to the ground. You need, in today's environment, you need to obviously be aware of diversity and all those other things that when I started out were not issues. Today, I'm not saying they're issues, but they're things that you need to be aware of, depending on who you are, clearly, but and how and what it is, what kind of theater you want to do. You probably need to, when you talk about luck, you probably need to understand the environment that you want to do this live theater within. What is the environment? What is the like in Vancouver, starting a company would be difficult. You just have to understand it's going to be difficult. There's so many different companies doing so many different small shows. Venue-wise, you could probably find a venue to rent. But if you're talented, and if you pick the right thing to do and you land at the right time, which is luck, then you may succeed.
Do you have to have a head for money?
Not necessarily, but it's certainly helpful if you have somebody who does.
Right.
Not necessarily, but usually people that are bright enough to kind of come up with the idea and determined. You have to be determined. You're going to be that down enough that, and because the environment is so different now, you know, you're not likely to have a reviewer suddenly discover you. I mean, I was lucky in the early years that we had got good reviews, so the word was getting out there. So you have to understand how you're going to, I mean, obviously using social media will get you instant awareness, but how to get beyond that is can be a bit of a struggle.
It's that thought, you know, it's one talent to build, it's another talent to perpetuate.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah,
some people don't have the talent for the first, but not for the second.
and yeah, and
weird.
understand what the long haul
Yeah.
looks like.
Because you could say the same for an acting career. You know, to build, oh my gosh, Bill can actually act. Oh my God, what he can. But then 20 years down the road, Bill has to perpetuate his career and keep working.
Yeah, I mean, the other way is if you're a director, even an actor who wants to direct or whatever, is just, you know, hitch yourself to another company, right? Or get to know Ashley or whatever, and become an assistant director and see what that's like. And then you begin to understand what the you know, ecosystem is and what the landscape is like, and whether you can take your whatever show you want to do and park it somewhere. There's a lot of places to be able to park it. Yeah, you do have to raise money, but you know, people can do GoFundMe or whatever. And you will be successful, or you could be successful in doing your first show. And you're absolutely right. So the second show is always the trick.
That's when the rubber hits the road.
A little bit, yeah.
Thank you, Bill. This has been a really, really wonderful conversation.
Great.
And thank you for what you've done for all the years out here, Vancouver Theatre, and thanks for your words as well.
Thank you for setting it up and talking about
Not
it
at all.
and giving me a chance to babble on as I was saying to.